Today, we're traveling to Australia to explore a case that has become deeply woven into the nation's history. It's a tragedy that forever changed how parents viewed the safety of their world, shattering a sense of innocence that once existed. This is the haunting story of the Beaumont children, Jane, Arna, and Grant, who vanished without a trace from a beach in Adelaide. What you're about to hear is a summary of the events of that day in January 1966 and the decades-long search that followed. It's a story marked by unanswered questions, fading lights, and a family left without closure. More than half a century later, the mystery remains unsolved. The original Reddit thread is titled, 50 years ago in January 1966, the Beaumont children, siblings Jane, Arna, and Grant, disappeared from a beach in Adelaide, and Australia's most enduring missing person mystery began. Their parents passed away without ever learning what happened to their children, and to this day, their fate is still unknown. Between 9:45 and 10 a.m. on the morning of 26 January 1966, the Australia Day public holiday, 3 siblings boarded a bus from their home in Somerton Park, Adelaide, South Australia. They were heading for nearby Glenelg Beach to enjoy the sun and ocean. Jane Nader Beaumont, aged 9, her younger sister Arna Kathleen Beaumont, aged 7, and brother Grant Ellis Beaumont, aged 4, were experienced enough to make the short 2-mile trip alone. They had done so before. Mother Nancy expected them home by 2 p.m. They never came back. Witness sightings. A bus driver later told police he remembered the 3 Beaumont children boarding the bus. The neighborhood postman also reported seeing them during their journey to the beach as well. The siblings were next seen at a grassy area near Glenelg Beach by a classmate of Jane, who pointed Jane out to her mother. The mother and daughter told the Beaumont children playing with a man, who was also seen by other witnesses leaving the beach with the children later on. The witnesses described the man with the children as tall, thin, and in his mid-30s to early 40s. They said he was well-spoken and British-looking. The children were next seen around between 11:15 and 11:30 buying pasties, a meat pie, and drinks from a local shop, Wenzel's Bakery. The sighting was particularly noteworthy because Jane paid for their purchase with a £1 note. This was far more money than their 6 shillings and 6pence mother Nancy had given the children that morning, suggesting someone else had given them the £1 note. That person has never come forward to police. Moreover, the shopkeeper knew the children from previous visits and confirmed they had never bought a meat pie before, another suggestion that someone else was with them. That sighting in the local shop was the last confirmed trace of the Beaumont children. The disappearance of the 3 children is widely thought to be linked to the disappearance of Joanne Ratcliffe and Kirst Gordon from the Adelaide Oval whilst they were attending an Aussie Rules match there in August 1973. Searches. When the children didn't arrive home as expected by 2 p.m., their parents Nancy and Jim searched the neighborhood for them. Finding no trace of their children, they called the police, and a formal police search began around 7 p.m. on 26 January 1966. Searchers scoured the entire coastline, including Glenelg Beach, nearby boats, and the water. Hundreds of volunteers helped the police in what became the largest-scale search in South Australia's history. However, despite the huge search, no physical evidence of what happened to the 3 Beaumont has ever been found. No bodies, no clothing, and not even a definitive crime scene. The desperation to find some evidence of the children led to psychic Gerard Croiset being brought in from the Netherlands to assist in the case at the instigation of a local businessman. Croiset initially claimed the children were buried in a cave near an Adelaide beach, but later in the year changed his mind and claimed that they were buried beneath a recently built factory in Somerton Park. The site was eventually excavated, but nothing was found. In 1968, 2 letters were sent to Jim and Nancy purporting to have been written by Jane Beaumont. One requested Jim and Nancy meet to pick the children up, but when they arrived at the location, nobody turned up. The letter was a cruel hoax. Theories and suspects. A number of theories have emerged about the fate of the Beaumont children. These include that the children drowned in a tragic accident on Glenelg Beach and that a cult was involved in their disappearance. However, the most widely accepted theory is that the children were abducted and murdered by the man they were with on the beach. The police have declared the case a murder and offered a $1 million reward for information. Over the decades, multiple suspects emerged. Confessions were made and later discredited. Excavations were carried out at properties linked to persons of interest, turning up nothing. Some of the suggested suspects include Bevan Spencer von Einem, suspected serial killer convicted of the murder of Richard Kelvin in 1984. Von Einem is named as a suspect in a police report, and archival footage of the Beaumont search shows a man strongly resembling Von Einem among onlookers. Arthur Stanley Brown, charged in 1998 with the murder of sisters Judith and Susan Mackay in Queensland in 1970, but died with dementia before he could be tried. Also a suspect in the abduction of 2 children from the Adelaide Oval in 1973. James Ryan O'Neill reportedly confessed to acquaintances while in prison for the murder of a young boy, but police say they have interviewed and discounted him. Derek Ernest Percy, a convicted child killer who was in the area at the time. However, he was only 17 when the Beaumont children disappeared, so likely too young to be the man seen with them, probably didn't have access to a vehicle which the abductor would have needed, and was in prison in 1973 when the Adelaide Oval abduction, thought to be linked, took place. Harry Phipps, identified by researchers as a possible suspect in book The Satin Man. Phipps' son Hayden, 15 at the time, claims to have seen the children with his father. Multiple excavations at a factory formerly owned by Phipps have found nothing. Impact. Observers believe that the disappearance of the Beaumont children was a watershed moment in Australia and profoundly changed Australian society. Before 1966, it was common for children to travel and play unsupervised, with Australia largely seen as safe and a place where crimes against children didn't happen. After the Beaumont children vanished, that sense of innocence was gone. Parents became more cautious about what they allowed their children to do unsupervised, and trust in public safety quietly eroded. Nancy Beaumont died in 2019 and Jim Beaumont in 2023, both having lived into their 90s without ever knowing what happened to their children. The couple remained in their Somerton Park home for many years, fearful that the children would return and find them gone. However, their marriage was broken by their loss and they divorced, spending their final years apart. In 1990, newspapers published computer-generated photographs of how the 3 children would have looked as adults, causing further devastation to Jim and Nancy and a huge wave of public sympathy for them once again. Nearly 60 years later, the Beaumont children remain missing. No arrests have ever been made, no remains have ever been found. There has been no closure and no answers, just 3 siblings who went to the beach on a summer morning and vanished without a trace. It's just devastating, 3 little kids who were just enjoying a summer's day at the beach. The detail about the £1 note and the meat pie is so small, but so incredibly chilling. It clearly shows they were with someone else, someone who gained their trust. And the impact this had on their parents, Nancy and Jim. To live your entire life into your 90s, never knowing what happened to your babies. It's an unimaginable pain. This case truly is a stark reminder of a loss of innocence, not just for a family, but for an entire nation. The fact that after almost 60 years, there's still a $1 million reward out there shows how desperate authorities are to finally give this family some answers. Let me know what you think about this case in the comments. It's one of the most famous unsolved mysteries for a reason. Thank you for joining me to remember Jane, Arna, and Grant. Take care, and I'll see you next time.